Hi everybody, welcome back to the Truly Myrtle Summer of Yarn. I am so thrilled to have you back with me, and I have the very lovely Nancy from Knit Sip Happy. Some of you might already watch her podcast, which I think you should. It's a great podcast. Or maybe you've knitted her socks from her fabulous designs. I've got her to come and talk to us about sock-worthy yarn. I'm so curious to hear from you, Nancy, because you've knitted so many socks. What kind of yarn you love to knit with, and what is your preference? What tools are great? We're just going to talk all things socks. So welcome to the podcast. And tell us how many socks you've knitted, Nancy. How many socks altogether?
Probably I must be getting close to 400 pairs.
It's a lot of feet.
I did a count up earlier in the year when I started to do a class, and I wanted to make sure that I was considered enough of an expert to do this class, I guess. So I counted up how many pairs of socks. And it was 360 something at that point, and that was back in April. And I know I've knit quite a few more since.
And every sock pair has 2 socks in it, so that's double the number of actual socks.
Yeah.
So you've knitted like near on 1,000 socks. Yeah, you're an expert in socks, I'd say. I think you're pretty good.
They're my desert island knit. I could knit nothing else. It's fingering weight socks.
Fingering weight socks, and you've designed lots of socks too.
Yeah, so it was a spur of the moment thing. I hadn't planned on doing this, but back in 2022, I just started playing with a skein of yarn from a friend of mine who dyes indie dyed yarn, and it was a new base with the black sock, the Myrtle thread running through it, and it went tremendously well. And I think I'm 24 patterns in at this point. We seem to be in this now.
And there are still more socks in you, I suspect, that are ready to come forth into patterns.
Yeah. And it's lovely because people reach out to me now and ask me to collaborate with them, different yarn dyers or companies, and that's such a thrill to be asked.
Yeah.
Then figure it out and put it out there in the world, and it's unexpectedly joyous stage of my life. I wasn't
so cool. I know, it hits you by surprise, doesn't it? All of a sudden you're blindsided by knitting and all of the fun in knitting. Yeah, that's really good. So tell me, you said socks are your desert island project. Should we just cut right to the chase? Yeah. And I want to hear, what is your desert island sock yarn then that goes with your desert island project?
I divide it into two. There's the commercial sock yarns like your opals, your regias, your knit picks, and things that are milled and produced commercially. And then there's the indie dyed yarns. So there's 2 different audiences for those sock yarns. So for me, and certain special members get the indie dyed stuff that I know is going to get hand washed and treated properly.
Right.
So
because
for me,
because you can't just bash them around those socks. They actually, right. So they're special. Okay.
Yeah. So something like this, that's, the indie dyed and the speckles, and, it needs, I do machine wash mine, but on cold and delicate, but then hang them to dry. This is a 4-ply sock yarn. It's got a very smooth, silky kind of hand to it, which I really enjoy. I like the way my tension looks at my 2.25 millimeter needle. So generally, and this is just your standard 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon.
Yeah. So it's smooth, nice smooth yarn, and so your stitches look really even and really smooth. Yeah. Does it have great bounce to it too? I was just going to say, does it have great bounce as well? And so, because I was thinking about this the other day, when you're putting socks on, there are some socks that you put on, they're quite stiff and you sort of pull them onto your feet, and other socks that have a lot more bounce in them. And I'm expecting that one will have more bounce.
Yeah. And again, it's a smidge thinner too. So your gauge is going to be, if you're knitting something, this is at 463 yards, which is just around 420 meters. Something like this versus something like this. This is 365 meters. You're knitting it at the same gauge. It's a high twist 2-ply, which I enjoy, but it's not my favorite. The hand of it is different. The drape of it is different because it's a thicker gauge. So it's going to feel, this fabric's going to feel stiffer than this feels.
It's amazing, isn't it? Because if you use either of those in a shawl, you're not going to notice the difference so much. And so where you're using them for a particular gauge, a tight, small gauge, that's when you really start to notice. Okay, it's something for people to remember.
Yeah. There used to be saying all sock yarn is fingering weight yarn. It's not necessarily anymore because you got DK and the worsted and all that. But not all fingering weight yarn is sock yarn.
No, right.
Sock yarn
Yes.
specifically needs to have a high twist. It needs to have nylon or mohair or silk, something that gives it the strength for
Mm,
all the friction, rubbing, and
mm,
abuse it's going to take in your boots, your shoes, your slippers,
mm,
or just on bare floors,
mm,
whatever the case may be.
mm,
So, there's lovely fingering weight yarns out there, but they're just not appropriate for knitting socks.
mm, mm.
But on the flip side, you can take a lovely skein of indie dyed sock yarn and knit a fantastic shawl or a garment or a hat or a cowl or mittens. And
Mm,
the nylon in it gives it extra strength and structure.
mm, mm.
So, instead for me, fingering weight nylon based sock yarn has such a huge place in my stash because it's so adjustable,
Yeah, really, really
not
versatile
just for
yarn.
socks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 Okay, well, that's interesting then.
Yeah.
So I guess that will vary from person to person too, whether they like something with a little more texture or whether, and so thinking, so you said the other ones was kind of the Regias and some of those other commercial yarns. Are they the ones that will give you just a little bit
Yeah.
more grit to your sock versus this really smooth
Yeah.
finish? Mm.
Yeah. I grabbed a West Yorkshire Spinners out of my stash. I kind of describe all of these European based commercial sock yarns. They're 75-25 for the most part. They've got just the way they're plied and spun. They're super
Mm.
strong and really they're dyed in a different however they're dyed commercially. The dyes are set better, so you don't get the color fading when you machine wash and put them in the dryer.
Right. Yeah.
The colors tend to stay truer. So for gift knitting, for those I'm uncertain about how they're going to take care of them. So I'm kind of a split personality sock knitter. I don't just have one favorite, but there's a place in my stash for commercial, relatively inexpensive sock yarn versus the super, indie dyed specialty
Yeah. Yeah.
stuff as well.
And there's a different price point for them too, so that you're
Yeah.
thinking, okay, well, I'll give you, if I'm, because there's also the person that you're not 100% sure are going to want the socks. Do you ever have that? So you're
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I think you're going to love them, but I'm just taking a bit of a punt here. So I might just give you a little bit of this commercial yarn first and
Yeah.
just not like
Yeah.
push the boat out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, my son is 33 this year, and he's been getting socks from me for over 10 years. And this is going to be his first time getting indie dyed yarn this Christmas
Oh,
because he's
knitworthy.
a boy.
Yeah.
He's very worthy, but I know he's not taking care of these socks.
Does he bring them back
He's
to you
going to
to
get an
mend?
instruction list.
Do you get a lot of mending?
No, he doesn't.
He doesn't. So what happened? Do you ever see
No,
them?
because it's the commercial stuff.
Oh,
So
I
either
see. Yeah.
if he's,
Bomb-proof.
I don't think he's wearing them out.
Right.
I don't know. That's a
Well,
good
he's
question.
got
I should
10
ask.
pairs, so he's got a few to choose from now anyway, hasn't he? If he's been knitting them
Yeah.
for 10 years.
Yeah, probably more like 20 because he would have gotten for his birthday as well. Birthday and Christmas.
It's nothing like having a mum that knits socks. That's classic. Okay. Oh, that's good. So people, so that they can, well, I think already that's really interesting for people to think about where they steer towards with these, with their particular yarns. You talked before about having a nylon in your yarn, and I know that has been the topic, a contentious topic for some time about whether or not we put nylon in our yarn. And obviously it does add a great deal of strength to a sock, and which makes it last. And so, the flip side of that is that it lasts quite a long time. But have you experimented with some of these natural, sort of the mohairs and the silks and things? Have you experimented with those in socks to give the strength?
Yeah, I have. Those are indie dyed, so they're only going into my stash.
Right.
And I have a formidable number of socks. So mine are probably only getting worn 3 or 4 times over the 7 months.
Right. Yes.
7 or 8 months I wear socks because I'm in Canada. It's cold.
Yeah, a lot of sock wearing opportunities. Yeah.
Right. So mine aren't getting the wear that I think perhaps a more normal person would. So yes, I have used mohair. I have used silk. I do have in my stash that I haven't used the Retrosaria Mondine that has no nylon in it.
Right.
And it also doesn't have mohair or silk.
This is just straight up yarn.
Yeah.
Is that the one?
I think with the high twist.
Yeah. And also I was reading something the other day, and they were talking about in traditional sock patterns, you would make them a fraction longer. I think they would instruct you to make the sock a tiny bit longer. So then it would rub in your shoe and felt. And that way you would actually create the strength through the wear of the sock. And I thought, oh, that's an interesting idea, because there wouldn't have been any of these. I mean, most likely none of these fibers handy to put in. So you would have just had to have these fairly coarse wool, probably woolen spun socks. And then you just felt
and
quite thick.
Yeah, and quite thick.
Yeah.
So in the eastern part of Canada, even further east than me, so the province of Newfoundland, they have a tradition of these thick, woolly, they call them vamps.
Right, vamps. Yeah.
That they would go in their boot. And it's exactly that. It's 100% wool, and the sweat of your foot would felt the bottom, and you'd end up with almost like, they come out of your boot and they almost still look the shape of the boot because they felt it.
Yes.
To your foot and the boot, and created just that extra layer of the impermeability to the water.
Yeah. I thought, that's interesting. So, I mean, that is something people could embrace, I guess. It should experiment with that. Just apparently a tiny bit longer, and then rub.
Yeah. It would have to be bigger because, of course, felting pulls
everything's smaller. Yeah. But you have got a few then, but you just don't get a chance. You haven't really worn them a heck of a lot in your own.
Stash. I don't think I'll.
Wear them out.
Yeah, I enjoyed the process of knitting with them, but I don't think they're ever going to get the wear time that they probably need for me.
Yeah. Right. Well, that's all right, because I think, well, that's interesting. Okay. So when it comes to, because I know there's also people that you can get a wool yarn and then you can buy very fine nylons, and holding it together with a very fine nylon is something other people do, even if it's just in the heel or wherever it is that, the toe, wherever it is that you tend to go through, might be another thing to think about, is just having the nylon.
There's a brand of German yarn, I believe it's Lang Yarns.
Right.
And I have bought their soft yarns before, and it automatically in the center of, it's a ball put up like this, and in the center there's a little skein of the extra nylon, and that soft yarn already has nylon in it. So it's just an extra level of being able to ensure that your recipient doesn't blow through the heels, the sole, or the toe, or wherever it is they blow through.
Yeah, that'd be quite good, because everyone's slightly different, aren't they, about where they do end up getting holes. That'd be quite good. Okay. A German one. All right. So we've got, anything else about yarn that you want to tell me before I launch into asking you some other things about tools?
Well, I was going to talk about, I had other commercial yarn
show me.
as well that aren't necessarily as rustic as the German ones.
Yeah.
And they're super soft. So Cascade's pretty well known. This Heritage soft yarn base, great yardage, still a 75-25, but it's really, really soft. I knit garments in this, but it's designed as a sock yarn. But and I haven't found the felting too bad. Knit Pick Stroll, a North American brand, an American brand. It again, very dear. That light, didn't like that light. Uber soft, really soft yarn. And again, this is one of those ones that tends to go into gift sock knits for me.
Right.
And I've never had anybody tell me they've blown out of them, but I always wonder this one, how well it wears.
Okay, well, that's quite good. So that's
because they have a bazillion colors.
Right, and so they're mimicking some of that softness of the hand dye and some of that smoothness that you're talking about, and then presumably they're going to give you a little bit more of that, bounce in the yarn when you're putting them on and then snugging up to your foot again. Yeah, that's quite good.
Fundamentally, this is a hobby that we love to do, so you need to find a yarn that you like the feel of. If you don't like the feel of the more rustic yarns, then you're not going to enjoy the project. It doesn't really matter how long the socks last on the recipient's foot. If you hate it, you haven't been putting the love into the project.
Exactly. So, every stitch is a instead of a love.
Yeah. That for me was Patton's Croy. It's another North American brand, I believe, and it's more like a sport weight. And I didn't realize that when I bought it. I heard so much about Patton's Croy. I got halfway through the first sock and I thought, I hate this stuff. I absolutely hate it. And I still have a few skeins in my stash that I haven't managed to get rid of yet. But it's But, you talk to other people and they love it. It's one of the favorite, their favorite yarns. And we're all individual. We all like different things.
Yeah. And I have to say, I knitted with a yarn recently. It was a sock yarn, and I was going to use it in a shawl, and it was so splitty. It was just that really splitty sort of yarn. And it was been ages since I've really thought, I just can't be knitting with this. It's just not pleasant at all. Every time I go in, it split. And it's all, no, it is funny. You have to get the yarn that your hands enjoy. I think that is really important.
This is what we love to do.
Yeah.
And we want to give it to people that we love. So.
Yeah, exactly. You want it to be like, Water for Chocolate, or whatever that movie was, where you made everything with love and then, passes on. That's exactly what you want. So tell me about some of your favorite tools, because I think, when I was just saying before about my splitter yarn and my needles, part of me was thinking, maybe if I didn't use such pointy needles, it would be good, or maybe my needle choice was off. What are your favorite needles for using for socks?
I brought my little needle case.
Oh, yeah.
And I got my favorite needles. I got 2 sets of them and they're in use. So one has a project on. So my favorite, I have 2 favorite soft needles. I tend to do mostly magic loop.
Right.
I learned on DPNs, bamboo DPNs,
and did you knit inside? Did you knit inside out when you first learned, like I did?
Sure did.
And then you're like,
day 1, I snapped the first wooden needle, and day 2, I snapped the second wooden needle, and that was the end of wooden needles for me.
Yeah, it was wooden. Mine just bend like that, and I end up with these kind of moon-shaped needles because I must sweat in my hands and I'm holding on really tight. But I can remember looking at my mum and saying to her, "How come your sock knits the right side out? I couldn't. My sock's knitting inside out. Well, I don't understand what's happening." Oh, I see.
Yeah, I went back to the local yarn shop with mine and went, "I don't understand. What am I doing wrong? I don't understand."
So what were you doing wrong? Tell everybody who's sitting here thinking, yeah, I thought socks were always knitted inside out. No, apparently not.
It's just the way that your needles are angled for the piece of fabric that's coming out. You need the fabric to come out the bottom of your needle, not top.
Yeah.
It's coming out the top, it's inside out.
Yeah. And also I think
it was a simple
fix. Yeah. And I found as well, I was knitting the back. So the sock was looking at me and I sort of was knitting at the back somehow. And I just needed to flip it and turn the yarn so that I was knitting on the front of my work rather than looking at the back of the tube. So it's just you just flip it all around and put it facing the right way and looking at you. Yeah. Makes all the difference, apparently.
Yeah.
That's good. Okay, so show us these sock needles. I'm curious to see which ones you love.
So, ChowGoo.
Oh, yeah, ChowGoos. Yeah.
ChowGoo. Yeah. So, this is a mini twist set. So, you buy the tips separately and then the cable separately.
Mm-hmm.
And just like with every other ChowGoo needle, it's a very thin cable, but it has no memory. So, it doesn't twist and, it's quite pliable. So, it's just very pleasant to knit with. When I'm doing magic loop, I can pull that back needle out and then start knitting right away. And my yarn doesn't need retensioning. So it saves me a step. With a thicker cable, I find I'm having to pull it out, drop my yarn, retension my yarn, and then start.
Right. Okay. So you're just a lot faster.
I have 2 sets of these. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the join is amazing, like all the ChowGoo needles are. Their join is just nice and smooth, so the yarn doesn't fetch up. It just goes right onto the needle. There's nothing catching, or having to shove it over. What feels like a Grand Canyon. It's just that little bit of a gap.
Yeah.
So that's my number 1. My number 2 is a Haya, but it's the steel, not the sharp.
Right. Okay.
I have an interchangeable set of the sharps, which is great for garments and cables and that. But if you're getting Hayas, it's the green cable.
Oh,
so the green cable is the steel tip.
Right. Yeah.
And the blue cable is the sharps tip.
Remind me what the difference is between the sharps and the steels.
So the sharps are just a lot sharper. Right, so these steels have a nice point still. I can still do my cables and my slip knits and whatever I need to do in the architecture of the sock, but it's not punching a hole in the top of my finger.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that'd be handy.
And the cable does have a bit more memory to it. you can see we're kind of springy with the memory,
Oh,
but
yeah.
again, I don't find it gets in my way. And the join in this one again is just beautiful. There's never any fetch up or issues with it. So this is number 2.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then I also love the ChiaoGoo 9-inch circle.
You like the 9-inch 6, yeah. I don't. I
See,
can't be dealing with
this is the
those.
controversial that
I'm
this
on the
is
other
bringing
side
the
of that
controversy,
fence.
right?
Yeah, well, I've come to a
Now
compromise with mine because you tell us about the 9-inch, and I'll tell you what I've done. Although maybe you already do it too. All right, so
yeah.
you've got
So
fixed
they're
circulars.
weak.
Yeah,
I'm using the fixed.
yeah,
I tried the ChiaoGoo set, the interchangeable set, the
yeah.
red set
That's
that
what
has
I've
the
got.
small sock sizes. I didn't like the cables are too floppy in that set. So
Ah,
this
okay.
cable is more like the regular red lace ChiaoGoos.
Yeah,
And the ones that come in the interchangeable set are more like this. They're
yeah. I don't
pliable
mind
and
those ones. Yeah,
they
yeah.
don't give me the support that I need.
Right. Okay.
Just the
Because
way
you're
I
using the
hold
two,
needle.
and you're using the two little tips on that 9-inch. Because I found my
Yeah,
compromise,
and
because I've got,
they're the
yeah,
same.
they're the same. So the compromise I found was I've got the little interchangeable set. The cable, I hadn't really thought about it. It
Yeah,
doesn't bother me, but it's the needles. I use the short one on one hand, and so the 2-inch tip on one hand and the 3-inch tip on the other, and then I can manage it. But
yeah,
those two shorties, I just like all my
yeah,
energy was in my hands. I was getting tighter and tighter. But I found if that, yeah, that
yeah,
slightly longer tip, and actually for the life of me, I can't remember if I
yeah.
put it in my left hand or my right hand now. But I can't remember which side. When I'm doing it, I know it's like
Yeah, I
driving a
do it on
car.
my right, but again, that's my knitting style. I always, if I'm
Yeah.
going to do a longer tip on an interchangeable set, I always put it on my right
It
side.
just
That's where
fits
I need.
nicely into your hand, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Like that.
yeah,
So yeah, and I
yeah,
found that works quite well with having them two
yeah.
different. So there are lots
So
of options.
the trick with these, like
Mm,
anything else, is practice makes perfect.
yeah.
You don't want to sit down and give yourself an hour on these to start with because it's going to hurt your hands. It
Yeah.
just is. They have to the way the engineering of holding a needle like this is completely different than holding a double needle or magic loop with
Yeah.
the longer tip.
Mm,
So I've had a few friends who've tried, and I'm 10 minutes a day, no more than 10 minutes a day, and for 2 weeks constantly 10 minutes a day, and
right.
then see how it feels. If it's feeling any better, if you want to give it another 2 weeks at 10 minutes a day, or if at that point you're ready to jack it in, then
Yeah.
at least you've given it a try.
Yeah.
But you're right. The first time you use them, your shoulders are up around your ears. You've got the grip of death. The yarn's not going through your fingers because your hands are sweating so badly.
Exactly.
It's just knitting. What are we doing to ourselves?
I know it's torture. I have to say, when I moved to the little sleeve needles that ChiaoGoo do with the little bend in them, I remember the first time I knitted with those, and I was knitting a sleeve and thinking, "This is just out of control. This is crazy. I don't know if I like that." But it didn't take long. I just knitted and knitted and knitted, and all of a sudden, click, my hands are into it, and now I find
Yeah,
them quite well. They're just normal now. But yeah, it does to make
yeah,
that change does take a bit of time.
yeah.
Just a little bit of
Our,
time to
it,
adjust.
it's what we do is muscle memory. Our hands know what
Mm.
they're doing. Our brain isn't really telling our hands what to do anymore. I'm
Mm.
sure it is on some base way
Mm.
back level. But the
Not
whole
really,
reason
yeah.
we find it relaxing is our hands know what to do. When
Mm.
you introduce something like this, they don't know what they're doing. So
No.
it brings up a whole bunch. It brings up a whole bunch of issues.
Yeah, yeah. Issues you can't be dealing with when you're supposed to be relaxing. Oh, fantastic.
So, but this one again has a caveat for me. I love this one for basic texture. I can't do big cables, or
Oh,
I
yeah.
can do a slip knit and knit two together. But I don't have the leverage. The way that I knit this little tip doesn't give me the leverage to get in and do anything fancy, like anything more than a knit two together or slip
Right.
knit.
Yeah.
Knit pearls. That's my limit on these. If it's
Yeah.
anything, more cabley or that requires crossovers and yeah, lace is fine, but it's the big crossover cables and things I just can't do on these needles.
Mm.
I just
Mm.
don't have the leverage. That's why I've got lots of different kinds.
Mm. Mm.
And I can tell you one I've discovered. This is one of my first sock needles I ever bought. What I really, really don't like. Knit Pro Zings.
Oh, I don't mind
When
the
I was in the
things.
UK,
The colourful
in
ones.
their sock needles, it's
Yeah.
like the Grand Canyon in that join. It's so
Ah,
difficult to get it
you've
up
got the.
over that join.
I haven't tried those. I've just like their DPNs. I like the DPNs, the Zing
Yeah.
DPNs.
Yeah.
And the reason I
have
like
their
those.
interchangeable set.
Oh yeah, are they
Yeah,
better? They're interchangeable.
Yeah.
I
It's
don't much like the cables of those.
Yeah, a lot of memory. When I went to England, my only Gu interchangeable twist that I had, the cable came apart from the needle.
Oh.
And they have a lifetime warranty, which is great. And I contacted my store here in Canada by message. She said, I'll get it right out in the mail. This was day one of my 10-day vacation.
Yeah.
And I had to make some packing decisions. So I left a lot of my spare needles at home.
Oh.
So I only had one other stock needle, and it was on a design. I didn't want to take it off and mess with gauge, and I didn't want to mess with it. So the first yarn store I went to, this was the only soft needle they had. I already have 3 of these darn things that I don't use anymore because I don't like them.
No.
And I had to buy another one because it's all there was.
Oh, Nancy, the things we do. Well, I haven't tried those ones with the join, but I do like the Zing DPNs. And mostly the reason I like them is because they're all coloured. And so you know that is that size and that's, and you're not sitting there holding the light out like that and trying to see what the size is on the needle. It's just that is the right color. Yeah. So but I haven't tried
and I
those.
do like the needle itself. It's sharp enough, not too sharp, but for me it's the join to the cable. My interchangeable set isn't like that. Right. So I don't know if it's just my interchangeable set only goes to 3.25 millimeter.
Okay.
So I don't know if it, like I said, it's a noticeable,
catch
of the gap. And it just, every single time you're forcing the stitches up over the needle, it's not going back in my needle.
No, that'll just
I'm going to throw it away.
Absolutely crazy. Yeah. No, you can't be dealing with that. Little gaps in the needles where they don't join properly and little catches. They're just awful, aren't they, to deal with? Yeah.
Yeah. Again,
oh my gosh.
Life is too short. We do it because we love it, not because we want to burn it at the end of the night because you just can't.
Exactly. Yeah, I reckon. So, have you got any other sock tips or tricks for us before I want you to show us some of your delicious sock designs so everyone can see them?
Thank you. I didn't bring my sock ruler in here, but there are different sock rulers made by different manufacturers, and it's a piece of wood or plastic that slides into your sock, and you can get it's rounded, so you can get a measurement. You can stuff it right into there, and you can get a measurement all the way down to know when you're ready to start the heel or start the leg or your toe or whatever part of the sock that you're on. So I do have a sock ruler that I use just to kind of verify I'm in the ballpark for the leg length that I like. Mm-hmm. And then also it goes in when I'm almost to the toe. I shove it in this end so I know what my foot length is. Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's a really handy resource online, and I always link it below my podcasts. There's a sock sizing page. Yeah. So if you're a woman size 5, your foot is going to be this long total, this much is going to be your heel, this much is going to be your toe. So it kind of gives you some really concrete numbers to work from.
Okay, it's quite good if you don't have anyone around.
Yeah, shoe sizes can be a bit, they like everything else. Clothing isn't necessarily always going to be the same size. A size 7 shoe isn't going to feel like a size 7 shoe all the time, but at least it gives you a starting place. And fundamentally, it's stretching back. When I first started knitting socks, I only ever knit them one size, and I gifted them to everybody. And it worked.
Well, you didn't hear it, didn't you?
So,
oh, that's classic.
Sometimes just keeping it simple, with the shoe size is a really handy way to get a sock for somebody that is somebody you don't know well enough that you don't feel comfortable actually taking their foot. Hey, while you're sitting there, can I measure around your foot?
No, some people, I really don't want to measure around your foot. Do you think you could measure around your foot?
So, when they come into my house or I go into their house, I just sneakily kind of have a look at their shoe size.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, don't mind if I just have a poke in your shoes. Yeah, that's good though. And it's also easier when they live far away. You can just say, just tell me what shoe size you are, rather than trying to take a measurement. You're taking it all in the wrong place and then you end up with the wrong. Yeah, that's quite good. All right. Well, if you'd let me know what that is, we'll make sure we link that underneath this video when everybody watches it.
I will send you that.
Yeah. That'd be good. All right. Well, you've done a plethora of designs yourself, so I'm quite keen to see some of your favorites, and then you need to tell people where they can find you as well, so they can come and discover more of your delights on YouTube and where you sell your
Yeah.
patterns.
As you can tell, I'm a bit of a sock nerd. We've already kind of established that in a lot of ways. Yeah, I love playing with texture. I love playing with color, but I also want something that doesn't require me to have to think too much. But I also don't want to do just plain vanilla stockinette, because that ends up with me on my phone, not paying attention, not actually knitting. I'll be scrolling.
Yeah.
So for me, it's a matter of getting the right level of engagement without having too much focus.
Right.
So the majority of these I can take out and I can have, knit in public with friends and be able to talk while I'm doing it. So this
they're
is
so pretty.
Kind of got a bit of lace, but we're just distorting the bit of the striping that's happening with this. Increase and decrease and a little bit of lace.
That's cool.
And this is called, Lake Ontario sock.
What a fun way of taking
some Toronto.
Yeah, it's really fun way of taking a hand-dyed yarn would probably work well with that, with quite a big speckle through it, wouldn't it? So that you
also a self-striping yarn works really well with it, because again,
it's
moving the stripes in a really fun way.
That one's really fun.
Yeah. I tried about 6 different textures and different things with this. I had all kinds of charts written up, and every time I knitted up, I ripped it out because I just couldn't get anything to stand out with these strong color kind of horizontals that were happening.
Yeah.
So for me, that means it needs to be disrupted vertically. So that was where this one came from.
Yeah, that's really cool.
And this is one of my more recent ones, and I love this one. I hadn't designed a sock pattern for quite a few months. I had a bit of burnout after, hang on. Oh, Knit City, Toronto.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going the wrong way. Going the wrong way. So this one, I hadn't designed anything between May and September, and this one kind of came out of my head in September.
Oh, that one's cute.
And again, it's just a really fun slip cross, a little bit of broken rib texture, and some garter bumps. And again, it's just enough. There's always rows of stockinette between it, so you do get your fix of plain vanilla knitting. But then you get to do something every second round. And for me, that just scratches my happy spot.
Yeah, nice balance.
So yeah. And then this one's kind of having a moment all of a sudden. This is the Swiss Dot Shorties.
Swiss Dot Shorties.
And it's got these fun little wrap dots.
Oh, cute.
As a child of the 70s, Swiss dot fabric was pretty, it was everywhere. I had a little ballet dress made out of the Swiss dot fabric. And I remember sitting as a really shy, awkward 6-7-year-old playing with that texture, playing with those little dots through my fingers, but it felt feel better. I wasn't happy where I was in this group of kids. I didn't know.
Yeah.
Still feel that way. Now I take my knitting to keep my hands busy when I'm in a group of people I don't know.
That's a good idea. Oh, they're really cute. So they're really cute.
Yeah. And super fun playing with the color. I've done them as a longer full length as well. But just cute. Really enjoy this. And somebody posted on Instagram yesterday their pair.
Yeah.
And they were doing a Christmas version with the reds and the greens. And it was just so fun.
Yeah, that'd be lovely. They're cool. I like those.
Yeah,
I quite like those little shorty socks. And shorty socks are quite good for a change, aren't they? Because they're quick just to whip off your needles, but they're quite fun to wear too. If you've got something, cute little shoes and you pop your socks in.
And they're great if you've got, 35, 40 grams left, which a lot of times we do. If we're doing a contrast heel, toe, and cuff, or heel and toe, out of 100 grams gain, you've usually got quite a bit of yarn left.
Yeah.
So I do a lot of shorties for the younger ladies in my family because I can use up my leftovers.
Yeah.
The trick with that is I have learned my peril quite a few times this year. If you've watched the podcast, I've run out of yarn numerous times when I thought I had enough. So toe up, go toe up.
Toe up.
Because then your foot is as long as it is and the leg is as long as it is. But the foot can't not have a toe on it.
No. And they'd be called leg warmers then. Oh yeah, no,
Right.
yeah. Oh no, that's a good tip. Toe up. Yeah.
Yes. So this is the last release that just came out. This is Myrtle.
Oh, they're pretty, aren't they?
Really dark, rich color, but again, just this fun little, really graphic slip stitch cable-y texture running up the front.
Yeah, good. I like that.
And and if you haven't been around or don't know, for the first week of my pattern releases, if they're not linked to a yarn festival, the first week gets donated to the charity of my choice, depending on the time of year. So this one just happened as we were coming through Remembrance Day, November 11th, and we were able to donate just over $800 to a veterans charity that helps transition members out of the military
That's really cool.
into society again.
Yeah.
Which I thought was, my husband was in the Navy and my son-in-law is currently serving in the Canadian Armed Forces. So I always pick a charity that's close to my heart that I can get behind. And I just, it's so fun to be able to take, I love doing it, but I have a full-time job.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just do
this is your icing. Yeah.
So it's a joy and a pleasure, and I'm honored to be able to do it, to be able to do that, to donate that first week of proceeds to whatever charity we're coming up with. But so this was the most recent one.
Wicked. They're cool.
So last one, I promise. This is the Splendiferous sock.
I love
because
those.
I think
cool.
It's rather splendiferous.
That is so neat.
It's been really fun to see different color combinations that aren't quite as graphic as this.
Right. Oh yes,
and to bring it down a little bit. But again, it's slip stitches, elongated stitches, but it's this little blip, right? These little blips right here that happen as the color's changing that just make me so happy. And I was addicted to this. I've now knit 6 of them, 3 pairs.
Wow. And so they toe up or top down? Did you do that one? That one
top
is
down.
That one's top down, right? Because you pull the thing
top
together,
down,
right?
Yeah. Most I've only done 2 that are toe up.
Yeah.
Because of the way the stitch design went, but it also gave me a way to nail down and specialize the way I wanted to do my toe up socks. Yeah. I wanted to be able to do them with a heel flap and gusset, and not a short row heel. Because short row heels are problematic for a lot of people. Yeah. So being able to do a toe up with a really good basic, heel flap and gusset. And but the majority are top down because a lot of people really don't like toe up for various reasons. Yeah,
it is funny, isn't it? But I like both. But yes, those are cool. I really like those. Yeah. So everyone can get all of those. Tell us where they can get your patterns, and tell us where they can find you for your podcast, because you do a regular podcast, which is worth watching. So tell us where people can find you.
I am Knit Sip Happy everywhere. So my patterns are on Ravelry and Lovecrafts, and YouTube for the podcasts that are usually every 3 weeks. And sometimes I'll throw in some little extras depending on what's going on in the world, in my life. And on Instagram, I'm very active on social media. So on Facebook and on Instagram, I always post what I'm up to. And sometimes there's sneak peeks for designs.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah. Thank you so much for coming and chatting to us about that. So I hope everyone's feeling a little bit like, oh, yes, socks on my needles. That's what I need.
Socks on your needles. Because it's warm for you. So socks are the perfect, portable, not hot on your lap projects.
Yeah. And people can explore.
And you can take any pattern and make it a shorty.
You can, and you can have a little play with the yarn you're using. So now you've had some ideas about the hand-dyeds versus the commercial yarns, and then seeing if there's something that kind of bridges that gap. There's so many options. So yeah, they're such a good fun thing to do. Well, thank you so much, Nancy. It was absolutely lovely to chat to you, and I hope everyone is enjoying this summer of yarn. Yeah, you can enjoy your winter of yarn while we're down here baking, enjoying our summer.
Yeah. I'm having it's red wine season for me.
Ah, right. Okay. Yeah, we're on the gins over here, I'm afraid. Nice and cool. All right, everybody. I will catch you later, and thank you very much, Nancy. I will see you all later. Bye. See ya.
Cheers.
Cheers.